Okay, welcome back to the deep dive.
Hi there.
Today we're really digging into some powerful stuff. We've got these excerpts from John Steinbeck's novella of Mice and Men.
Yeah, it's classic American lit. And these pages, they just drop you right into the world of the Great Depression.
Yeah.
Following these characters living, well, on the edge.
Right. So our mission here is pretty clear. Let's walk through these specific scenes, unpack the relationships, the tensions simmering just below the surface.
And try to get a handle on those fragile dreams that Steinbeck shows us, even just in this glimpse, what really stands out from this material.
Okay, let's start where the book starts. By the river.
Yeah, the Salinas River, south of Soledad. The description is really beautiful, isn't it? Very peaceful, green water, trees.
Almost like a sanctuary, a real contrast to the lives of the men who pass through there.
Exactly. And then these two figures emerge, George and Lennie, walking single file, even out in the open.
That detail says so much, and the physical contrast is immediate. George small, quick, sharp features.
And Lennie, just huge, shapeless face, the way he walks like a bear. George in front, Lennie behind.
It really sets up their dynamic instantly. George is the leader, the planner. Lennie follows.
In that first interaction by the pool, Lennie just plunges his head in, drinking like a horse.
George's reaction is perfect, Steinbeck. That mix of, oh, for God's sakes, Lennie, but also, right away, don't drink so much, you'll get sick like last night.
Exasperation and care, all tangled up. It's automatic for George.
And it immediately flags Lennie's, well, his lack of awareness, but also this other crucial thing, his obsession with soft things.
Right, the dead mouse in his pocket.
Which George makes him give up. And Lennie's reason, I could pet it with my thumb while we walked along. So simple, so innocent.
But George knows the history, and Clara used to give him mice.
And he'd always kill them, petting them too hard because they were so little.
It's not just a character quirk, is it? It's Steinbeck showing us Lennie's nature, gentle intention, but dangerous strength he can't control. It's, frankly, chilling foreshadowing.
Which leads right into the weed incident. They don't spell it all out right here, but George mentions it later to Slim, and the source gives us the core of it.
Lennie saw a girl's red dress.
Yeah.
Wanted to touch it because it looked soft.
She panicked. He held on tighter. Typical Lennie reaction when scared.
And George had to physically intervene. The consequences were huge, she claimed rape. A lynch mob formed.
They had to literally run for their lives, hide in an irrigation ditch. This is the history they're running from, the reason they're so cautious.
It really cements that core relationship. George gripes constantly, doesn't he? God, you're a lot of trouble. I could get along so easy.
Have a girl, all that. He voices the burden.
But underneath, you see the fierce protectiveness. And Lennie's terror of being abandoned is just palpable. George, I should go away.
He knows he can't survive alone. And George knows it too, despite the complaining.
And holding them together, the thing they keep coming back to is the dream.
Ah, the dream. The little farm.
Living off the fattened land.
Yeah.
Rabbits for Lennie to tend. It's like their shared litany.
It's more than just a retirement plan, isn't it? It's their shield against the loneliness of being migrant workers.
Exactly. George puts it plainly. Guys like us are the loneliest guys in the world, but not us.
Because I got you, Anne, and I got you. We got each other. It's their anchor.
And crucially, right there in that opening scene by the river, George gives Lennie that instruction.
The safe place? If you just happen to get in trouble like you always done before, I want you to come right back here and hide in the brush.
That feels heavy, doesn't it? Setting up that location as both a refuge and, well, potentially something else later on.
Okay, so they leave the river, arrive at the ranch bunkhouse next morning.
And the first person they encounter is Candy, the old swamper.
The source paints him clearly, older guy, missing a hand, and he's got this ancient dog. Blind, smells bad. Clearly been with him forever.
Yeah, the dog is almost an extension of Candy himself. And right away, there's trouble.
The boss, he's annoyed they're late.
And George has to immediately start managing things. Makes up a story about the bus, lies about Lennie being his cousin.
Says he got kicked in the head by a horse to explain why Lennie doesn't talk much. George is already building defenses.
Then Curly comes in, the boss's son.
Described as small, wears those high-heeled boots and spurs, like he's trying to look bigger, tougher.
And he immediately picks on Lennie, sizes him up. Confrontational.
Candy fills them in later. Curly hates big guys. He's scrappy, always looking for a fight.
Yeah, setting up that inevitable conflict. You just know it's coming.
And then another complication arrives. Curly's wife.
Oh yeah, The description is so specific. The bright dress, the red shoes with ostrich feathers, the makeup, the sausage curls. She's definitely making an entrance.
Looking for attention. Wandering around, supposedly looking for Curly.
George reads the situation instantly. Calls her a tramp. Jailbait. His radar's going off like crazy.
And he warns Lennie very directly. Don't you even take a look at that bitch. Don't you even smell her. Total avoidance.
But Lennie, in his simplicity, just sees her as pretty.
Which is exactly what George is afraid of. Another potential weed situation right there.
We also briefly meet Slim, the jerk-line Skinner. He gets a very different description.
Yeah, almost regal. Prince of the ranch. Calm, capable, with those godlike eyes. Someone the men respect.
And Carlson's there too, another ranch hand. His main contribution early on is complaining about
Candy's dog. Which leads to that really tough scene.
It's brutal in its way. Carlson is just relentless. The dog's old, it's suffering, it stinks. It's no good to anyone.
He frames it almost as a mercy, but it's harsh logic. Why don't you shoot him, Candy? And then offers to do it himself.
You really feel for Candy. I had him too long. I had him from a pup. He's so attached.
But the pressure from Carlson and the silent agreement of the others, he can't withstand it.
The tension in that bunkhouse, as Carlson takes the dog out, it's palpable in the text. Slim's quiet. Take a shovel.
Knowing what needs to be done, then that awful silence, waiting for the shot.
And afterwards, Candy lying on his bunk, staring at the ceiling. His sadness is profound.
But it's his regret that really hits hard. I ought to have shot that dog myself. I ought to have let no stranger shoot my dog.
There's such a powerful echo there, looking ahead to George and Lennie's situation. That burden of care, the hard decision, the pain of letting someone else.
Yeah. But then something shifts right after this low point for Candy.
He overhears George and Lennie talking, whispering about the dream farm again.
And suddenly Candy sees a lifeline. He's old, he lost his companion, he knows his time on the ranch is limited. He offers his money, his life savings.
$300. A significant amount. And it changes everything.
George is stunned. This thing they had never really believed in was coming true. The dream suddenly seems within reach.
It's this amazing moment of shared hope. George, Lennie, and now Candy, pooling their loneliness and their resources. They swear each other to secrecy.
But the ranch isn't just about shared hope, it's also deeply divided. Which brings us to Crooks.
The stable buck. The only black man on the ranch. He's physically isolated, living alone in a little room off the barn because of his race. He's got that crooked back, too.
But his room is different. Books, spectacles, medicine bottles. Suggests a private, more intellectual life, maybe.
Lennie wanders in there one Sunday when the others are off in town. Crooks is initially resistant. You got no right to come in my room. It's his only space.
But then Crooks starts talking, and you hear the sheer depth of his loneliness.
Yeah, he talks about what it does to a guy being alone all the time. A guy goes nuts if he ain't got nobody. He got nothing to measure by.
It's heartbreaking. He needs someone, anyone, just to know if things are real. He even torments Lennie a bit, poking at his fear about George leaving him.
Then Candy comes in, looking for Lennie. He remarks, "This is the first time I ever been in his room," which says a lot about the segregation.
Candy starts talking about the farm, tells Crooks about their plan, the money, and for a moment, Crooks lets himself consider it. Maybe he could be part of it too.
But that flicker of hope is fragile. Because then Curly's wife shows up.
Another intrusion into Crooks' space. She's lonely too, she says. I get lonely. I can't talk to nobody but Curly.
She dismisses their farm dream. Nuts. And talks about her own lost dreams. Being in movies, getting letters that never came. Projecting her own bitterness.
Things get tense when she asks about Curly's hand. Candy and Lennie stick to the story about the machine.
But she knows better. She looks right at Lennie, who busting. She figures it out.
And then comes that absolutely chilling moment. Crooks tries to assert himself, tells her she has no right being in his room.
And she just crushes him. With the threat of racial violence, I could get you strung up on a tree so easy it ain't even funny.
The change in Crooks is immediate and devastating. The text says he reduced himself to nothing. His voice becomes toneless. The power dynamic is stark and brutal.
So when George finds Lennie there and disapproves, Crooks completely withdraws. He tells Candy he was just kidding about the farm.
Says, I wouldn't want to go no place like that. Even echoes her power dynamic back in a way. A colored man gotta have some rights, even if you don't like them. The visit from Curly's wife just extinguished that possibility for him.
It really highlights how layered the isolation is on that ranch. Everyone's lonely, but some are trapped in ways others aren't.
Which brings us, inevitably, to the barn. Sunday afternoon. It's quiet again. Sun streaming in.
Deceptively peaceful. Because Lennie's there. And he's killed the puppy Slim gave him.
Accidentally, of course. Petted it too hard, just like the mice. He's talking to it. Why do you gotta get killed?
But his main worry isn't the puppy itself. It's George. Now, maybe George ain't gonna let me tend no rabbits. It always comes back to the dream and his fear of messing it up.
He tries to hide the puppy. And who walks in?
Curly's wife. Again, looking for company. She sees Lennie, sees he's upset.
Lennie keeps saying, George says I ain't to have nothing to do with you. Trying to follow instructions.
But she stays. Talks about her own loneliness, how she feels stuck with Curly, repeats her dreams of Hollywood.
Lennie keeps mentioning the rabbits. She finally asks, what makes you so nuts about rabbits?
And he explains. He likes to pet nice things, soft things.
And that's the opening. She says her hair is soft, invites him to feel it.
He does. But, Lennie doesn't know his own strength. He starts petting too hard.
She gets scared, tells him to let go, tries to pull away, and Lennie panics.
Less like in Weed, he clamps down, covers her mouth to stop her screaming because he's terrified George will hear and be mad.
She struggles violently. Lennie gets angry, tells her to stop yelling, shakes her.
And then her neck breaks. Just like that. Her body flopped like a fish, and then she was still.
Lennie understands, at some level, that something terrible has happened. He knows he's done a bad thing.
His thoughts immediately go to George, the rabbits, the hiding place. He leaves the dead puppy near her body and runs back to the riverbank.
Candy finds her. The horror, the despair. He knows immediately what it means. He runs to get George.
And George. The text says a change came over his face. He doesn't need details. He knows it was Lennie. And in that instant, the dream dies completely. Candy asks desperately, you and me can get that little place, can't we, George? Still clinging to it.
George's answer is just devastating. I think I knowed from the very first. I think I knowed we'd never do her. Admitting it was always out of reach.
Slim and the others arrive. Slim confirms her neck is broken, connects it back to Weed.
Curly's reaction is just pure rage. Vengeance. I'm gonna get him. I'll kill the big son of a bitch myself. Wants to shoot him in the guts.
Then Carlson realizes his Luger pistol is missing.
Taken by George, presumably. Curly rounds up a posse. George insists on going, but tries to argue against shooting Lennie. He didn't know what he was doing.
Slim understands the terrible reality. Jail, an institution. That ain't no good, he says. The options are grim.
And the final scene. We're back at the riverbank, the sanctuary.
Lennie's hiding, just like George told him. He's scared, waiting for George to yell at him.
And he starts hallucinating, sees his Aunt Clara scolding him, then a giant rabbit mocking him, telling him George will leave him.
It's his own fears and guilt talking. A really powerful way Steinbeck shows his internal state.
Then George arrives. Quietly. He has Carlson's gun.
Lennie asks, almost hopefully, if George is going to give him hell. Like always, he wants the familiar routine.
George goes through the motions, voice flat. If I was alone, I could live so easy. But Lennie interrupts. Go on, tell about how it's going to be. He needs the dream one last time.
And George tells him, voice shaking now, describes the farm, the animals, living off the land.
And I get to tend the rabbits. Lennie's last words, focused on his part of the dream.
As he's describing this peaceful future, George raises the gun to the back of Lennie's head.
He steadies his hand, tells Lennie to look across the river, imagine the place, and pulls the trigger. The crash of the shot rolled up the hills.
An act of, terrible mercy, protecting Lennie from Curly's rage, from being locked up, ending it quickly while Lennie is thinking about the dream. The other men arrive. Curly just sees the result. Right in the back of the head. Cold.
Carlson is confused too. Doesn't get why George is upset. Now what the hell you suppose is eating them two guys?
But Slim understands. He gets it. He tells George, you had it, George. I swear you had it. And leads him away. Come on, George. Me and you'll go into town.
So yeah, we've traced this arc through these excerpts. From that riverside hope, through the harsh realities of the ranch, back to the river for this tragic end.
We've really seen their bond, George and Lennie's. The pressures they faced, the loneliness affecting everyone, Candy, Crooks, Curly's wife, and how easily dreams get crushed.
You've heard the key moments from these sections. The mouse, Weed, Candy's dog, the farm dream becoming briefly possible, the bunkhouse tensions, Curly, his wife, Crook's isolation, the accidental deaths of the puppy and Curly's wife.
And that final heartbreaking decision George has to make.
It leaves you wondering, doesn't it? How much was just fate locked in by who Lennie was, who they all were, and how much was driven by the cruel circumstances of that time and place.
Yeah, was there ever really a chance for that dream? Or was it always just a story they told themselves to keep going in a world that had no real place for them? Something to think about.